Good afternoon and welcome. Jamie Vernon, Executive Director and CEO for Sigmazon and publisher of American Scientist magazine. Thank you all for being here for this momentous occasion, Sigmazon's first ever presidential town hall, where our members can meet the president-elect candidates for our November election. I'd like to take a moment to wish you all well during these extraordinary times. We at Sigmazon recognize that the research community is facing some unique challenges, and we want you to know that we are here to support you and help you navigate the uncertainty about the future. One way we can do that is to focus on the opportunities that exist as we go forward, including the selection of a leader for this great organization who can guide us to success in achieving our mission. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few details and general instructions for participation in today's event. The event is being recorded. The audience is muted and will remain so unless they have questions for the candidates. Over the past few days, Sigmazon has collected questions for the candidates from its members, and those questions will be answered first. Then the audience will have an opportunity to ask questions during the second part of the Q&A. You will have two options to submit questions. Dr. Iman Ghanem, Sigmazon's Director of Programs, Membership, and Chapters, will facilitate the audience questions through monitoring the raise hand and Q&A features. And questions will be recognized in the order received in the queue. Option 1 is for persons wanting to ask questions verbally. Please use the raise hand feature. You will be unmuted by the facilitator and invited to ask your question. Please speak clearly when asking your question, and we request that you state your name, affiliation, the candidate for whom the question is directed, and then pose your question. Option 2 is for submitting written questions. Please use the Q&A feature and write your name, affiliation, the candidate for whom the question is directed, and pose the question. The moderator again will read the question in the order received in the queue. Persons with a follow-up question, and some of you may have a follow-up question, should follow the same instructions listed above. Follow-up questions will be answered in the order received in the queue. When asking the question, please indicate that your question is a follow-up and to whom the question is directed. I hope you all got those directions. We will repeat some of them before we ask the questions to the candidates, but for now, I'm honored now to introduce our moderator, Dr. Linda Meadows. She is an inaugural Sigmazon Fellow this year and has been a bright light and noble voice for scientific research in many venues during an unparalleled service progression as chapter president, region director, society president from 2013 to 14, and executive director of Sigmazon. Welcome, Dr. Meadows.
Thank you, Jamie. Oh, good afternoon and welcome, everyone. It is my pleasure to moderate today's special event, which I am commemorating by wearing my Sigmazon blouse. Sigmazon, Scientific Research Society. Yay. Well, as Jamie explained, over the past few days, Sigmazon has collected questions from its members. Those questions have been reviewed by each candidate, and they will have 1 minute each to answer. After those questions have been answered by both candidates, we will invite the audience to ask questions. Each candidate will also be given 1 minute to answer those questions as well. We will try to present all questions, time permitting. And now I'd like to introduce our distinguished candidates who will each have up to 1 minute to provide opening remarks. A signal will indicate 10 seconds remain to let each candidate know their minute is almost up. So please join me in welcoming Richard Boudreau, a member of the Sigmazon McGill chapter and director of the Canadian International Constituency Group. He is a professor at the Polytechnique University Montreal, visiting professor at McGill, and CEO and chairman of Dimedso, a company that has been heralded for its pioneering use of acoustics to treat patients with airway clearance diseases, including COVID. Richard has been a member of Sigmazon since 2006. Richard?
Hello. I'm very happy to be able to meet you today and speak with you. So do not be afraid of asking questions. If they're too hard, I'll get Jamie to answer them, or even Nicholas. But I'm not your usual candidate. That's the first statement I should put. First, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been working in STEM business for a long time, 12 corporations to my name. I'm also a political whisperer. So I've been able to get 5 big science projects funded by governments, international projects with different people. And I spent 6 years on the governance of Sigmazon, in the most turbulent time that the organization has seen. And we have been able to turn around the ship, but the job is not complete until we finish it. So I'm asking you for a mandate to clear and finish the activity, as well as increase the reach of Sigma-Xi with its new fellow program, strategic teaming with other like organizations, maximizing the reach of science and decision making, especially in this day and age where many populist governments have taken control, and also, and very importantly, the cheapest thing we can do to increase our effectiveness, which is increasing diversity.
Well, thank you, Richard. Now, Nicolas Pepes. He's a member of the University of Texas at Austin chapter. He's the Family Regents Chair in Engineering with joint appointments in the Department of Engineering, Biomedical Engineering, and Pediatrics. He's also an international leader in the fields of medical devices, biomaterials, advanced controlled drug delivery, biosensors, and bio-nanotechnology. Nicolas has been a member of Sigma-Xi since 1973. Nicolas.
Thank you very much, Linda. I am delighted to be here and share with you some of my views about the future of Sigma-Xi. It's exactly 49 years since I came to the United States from Greece. It's 47 years since I became a member of Sigma-Xi, Sigma-Xi as we call it in Greek, at MIT. Lots have changed in the last 47 years. It's a totally different new world. Research has changed, science has changed. I am delighted to see that in this week's Nobel laureates, both Jennifer Doudna and Angela Getz, who received the Nobel Prizes in chemistry and physics, are members of Sigma-Xi. It shows that there is a continuous recognition of the field, and that these individuals continue to believe in Sigma-Xi. Sigma-Xi is an incredible organization. It's an organization that should be in the forefront. Its ideas should be used by the government, by all of us, to improve the quality of research, to improve the scientific interactions, to improve convergence, bringing people together. For me, it is not important that you are a chemist or a biologist, but we are all trying to solve a very important problem. How can we do that without including the young generation? How can we do that without being diverse, without bringing people from different backgrounds? I wouldn't be here with you today if the doors were closed for me in 1971. This country is a great country and will continue to be one because all of us believe in the ideal that what we do helps people. In my case, also patients. And with this, I would be delighted to hear the questions that you're going to pose today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Well, okay. Are you ready for the questions that were sent in earlier? Let's proceed with alacrity. Here's the first question. The society has taken positions on what some members view as political issues. As an example, funding priority of R&D, COVID response. What is your position, candidates? Nicholas first, then Richard.
Thank you very much. This is an extremely important question and one that many of us are trying to address in our institutions and in the national world. I come this week from the National Academy of Engineering meeting. It was done virtually, in which the same question was posed. As a president, as somebody who is going to direct this particular organization, I will always have an open mind, and I will talk to our members to try to develop the consensus of that particular group. At the same time, as an individual, I have my own ideas about the importance of research, the importance of certain aspects of research, and what really we can do. Whether, for example, COVID would be the only thing we are going to be doing these days. What happens with the people that suffer from heart diseases, from diabetes? What happens to the infrastructure of this country? What happens to the roads and so on? This will be the result of a very judicious choice of information that we are going to get, data-driven information. We are going to get from the members of Sigma Xi, and that I and the board will be able to combine together in order to give a certain answer and answers. Thank you.
Richard.
Hello. Sigma Xi as a board of directors whose job is to be the guardian of the mission of the organization, of the long view. And clearly this issue of political positioning did occur to us recently. It was started by Scientific American publishing out their views on political and asking people to vote on their political interest as well. I do not think, and the board doesn't think, that it is the role of Sigma Xi to tell its members who to vote for. It is certainly the role of individuals. I commend you on having an interesting election coming up, and I'm pretty sure that most of you will have a decision made and will be able to get voted correctly. Our status does not permit us to take a political stand. We can make a political position or have position on different issues of science, but it is not for us to say this government or that government should be the better one. It doesn't mean that you don't have an answer to that. We expect that you do, but it is not our role to do that.
Thank you, Richard. Our second question now. Sigma Xi members are largely older and near or above retirement age. How do you see Sigma Xi reaching out to younger generations, such as early career scientists and STEM students, and speaking to their values? Richard first, please.
Hello again. I think this is a key element to what should be the future. I have been at academy meeting and in meetings where people were asking, how are we going to deal with climate change? How are we going to deal with disease? How are we going to deal with biodiversity problem? And I've been involved with climate change research since the mid-70s. Not much has changed up till now. And what little changes occurred came from young people. So not only it is important and it is fun to have young people about, but it is the principal axis of change. And that's the way things are moving in the civilization. And clearly by having generation of 25 years and so on, it's probably driving a slowness in evolution, but that's the way the system works. So it's important to get the students, the young people, in contact with the generation we're in now. And one of the best way to do that, and I tend to do this every time we have an annual meeting, it is to be one of the judge on the posters that students bring. I think this is probably the best thing that the best mechanism we have to get the young people to be interested in science, and not only that, to consider point of views of elders into their communities. And so it is critical that we bring the students in further. I think it's important that we have a mix and find ways to mix the elders, well, like both of your candidates right now, and the young people, in order that we pass to the next generation what needs to be passed, and then pass to the next generation the will to change things, and understand that nothing is done until the fat lady sings.
Thank you, O wise elder. Nicholas.
The Sigmazon is an unusual organization in the sense that many of us are elected and we become members when we are very young, as graduate students, when we do our first good research and so on. And then there is a hiatus. Quite a few of us drop out of the organization. For me, that is a mistake and something that I will try to address right from the beginning if I were to be elected president-elect. I would like to see the young generation that is 30, 35, 40 years old to come back, to realize that this organization represents science, represents research of all types. Not just what I happen to be doing in my own research, but all types, from history to anthropology, to archaeology, to music, and so on. The young generation has to come in the game very early. I will propose, if I am to be elected, I would propose that we form committees, subcommittees with young members, graduate students, perhaps undergraduates as well, representing a wide range of universities and associations that will be able to give us these new ideas. I'm definitely geriatric. I'm 72 years old, but I happen to have a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old. And I can tell you, they keep me on my toes every moment, and they correct me. And I learn from the young generation, and I admire the young generation. And I want this organization to be a vibrant organization representing all aspects and not only aspects of individuals of my age.
Well, thank you, Sage Counselor. Now for our next question. How do you think that Sigmazon could better address when Sigmazon members exhibit signs of implicit bias? Nicholas?
Thank you very much. This is an extremely important question. At the University of Texas and in various organizations where I am, we discuss it, and we discuss it again and again. And it takes a long time to figure out that, yes, there is implicit bias. And it needs to be addressed. We need to bring in younger generation or people who are better educated in those areas, who can really identify for us the problems. We need to hear both sides, but I think it's very important for us to appreciate that there are certain things that must change in the way we think. If that is going to affect Sigmazon, so be it. I will support it. I understand that this comes close to perhaps political views and my own personal beliefs, but as a president, I believe I have to listen to what you say, and if there is a large majority that believes that there is an implicit bias, we have to try to correct it. One last thing, at the University of Texas, we have now all kinds of committees that are really addressing the question, and they're trying to correct it. In many of the societies where I was president or I am president, we do the same thing. So it's something that I think Sigmazon should definitely address.
Yeah, thank you for making the implicit explicit, Nicholas. And now, Richard.
Well, implicit social cognition is a very difficult thing to identify. It comes not necessarily because a person has the wrong way of dealing or is not politically correct. It comes from a part of the brain which is a bit elder. And comes from a part of the brain that may be able to say things that are not really in his frontal cortex and is not necessarily okay. I think it is very difficult to deal with generally because people will be generally politically correct. However, this type of social cognition is critical to be able to provide feedback to the person who uses it or the organization that uses it. They may not understand that what they're saying is a cognitive difference between them and the rest of the organization, and maybe giving the wrong opinion off the cuff. So it is very important that we provide some feedback to the people who are providing these comments so they realize that there's an issue between the frontal cortex and the reptilian brain.
Mm. Yeah, well explicated. Thank you, Richard.
Pleasure.
And now our next question is a multi-part question, so it's a little bit long. How much experience have you had with diversity initiatives? How much do you intend to look at models of success for minorities, such as HBCUs, before implementing diversity policies? Are you going to ensure that any changes you propose are data informed? How are you going to handle pushback from members who feel that discussion of diversity and inclusion should be outside the realm of science? Richard?
Right. Well, this is something that comes fairly close to heart. I'm an American native by background and by generation. I certainly feel the difference. In Canada, we're very much in a reconciliation type of project between the First Nation and the government and the Canadian people. It's clear that this is not occurring at the same rate in the US. And that is probably a bit of a sad thing, if not shocking thing. So the second question is look at model of success for minorities, such as HBCUs. Well, I'm from an HNCU, and I would make sure that nobody has an implicit social cognition on the fact that the B has been reversed by an N, but I'm a native in this case. I'm on the First Nation University of Canada, which is an organization which is HNCU in the sense that it's a First Nation and a Native people organization. I'm on the board of governors, and I do understand, and I do come back with issues that are not the best decision, that are meant to separate people who are of European descent and the native. And so we are dealing with this in a very open fashion. We are dealing with decisions in the past that have been wrong. And we do know for a fact that when diversity is included, that performance of an organization rises by 50 to 58%, depending on issues. That Scientific American and Nature demonstrated that with a diverse group of writers, women, men, and all other types of different individuals, including First Nation and people of color, which is part of what we are as well. And so when we have all these people together, we get an upgrade in capabilities. It's a very cheap way to get more performance out of an organization. And certainly inclusion is going to be part of what I would like to bring and make sure that we steer in the right direction and be able to carry the day.
Thank you, Richard. Very sensitively expressed. Nicolas.
Diversity and inclusion and equity are three words that are very important to me. They need to enter in our curricula, in the universities, and the need to earn in our societies that represent us. Why? Because diverse background individuals have different experiences that maybe others don't have. So we have to bring all these experiences together. In science, there is something called convergence. I'm sorry to deviate a minute, but it is a way to bring together a chemist and a biologist and a mathematician and a medical doctor to solve an important problem, say a problem of cancer. The same thing happens in our society. There is a convergence where people of different backgrounds come together to address those problems. I think I have been reasonably well prepared for that. I was chair of the biomedical engineering department for 6 years, starting around 2008. And during that time, I realized once more how important it was for us to start recruiting individuals with equity, with parity, without any problems of helping one group or promoting one group more than another. And this we did. I've done that much earlier in my life. Before it was diversity, it was how women could get into the scientific world. I'm very proud to tell you that my mother was a scientist. Of course, the conditions were such that she never practiced it. But I can say much more, that I personally, out of 115 PhDs that I have graduated, 45 of them are women. My first PhD in 1978, 79 was a woman. For me, this is a natural part of what we are trying to do. We are trying to educate the world. We are trying to represent the world. Effectively, we are trying to go back to Washington or to Ottawa and say that, look, we have come up with some important conclusions. They're not political conclusions. They are simply understanding that our world has changed and there are people in the various, from different areas that come together. Thank you.
Also very sensitive, Nicholas. Both of you, very heartful knowingness. Thank you. So here's the last question for both of you. From your perspective, what's the biggest challenge or challenges facing Sigma Xi, and how would you address it or them? Nicholas, please.
We have to bring different, can you repeat the question 1 minute? Because Sigma Xi sent me a message as you were talking, you know.
Sure, no problem. From your perspective, what's the biggest challenge or challenges facing Sigma Xi, and how would you address them?
The challenge has been there for many years. And I see it every year and I get very, very disappointed. We need to increase the number of members and we need to have active members. I believe that this organization about 30 years ago was close to 100,000. We need to bring many of these people back and to have them active. We need to increase the number of students, faculty, researchers, and others who participate in the meetings. So we need first to come up with an infrastructure that will bring those young students in, and they have to be from all organizations, from all universities, not only from the so-called well-known universities. They have to come from underrepresented universities, universities where there are underrepresented areas and so on. But at the same time, we need to keep them. Now, I'm going to mention the name of something that some of you may not like, the American Association for the Advancement of Sciences. I'm very much involved in that organization. I'd like to see us having a much broader and bigger annual meeting and then individual smaller meetings to address some of the important research and science problems. Ladies and gentlemen, Sigma Xi is a Greek word, and it means spudon xenones. It means the place where studies take place, where people talk and interact, Let's do that. Let's do it in a better way than AAAS or anybody else is doing it. And that for me is the number one goal. Thank you.
Love your passion, Nicolas. Thank you. And Richard.
Well, when I got on board 6 years ago, the corporation was in dire straits. The organization was in very much difficulties with financing a big building that was costing a lot of money. And so we had to pull in and rectify the direction of the organization. And under two different CEOs. It has been a difficult time. I have to admit, for the last 6 years, it was not easy. My job in the real world is turning around organization, and this one needed a turnaround. So we're not out of the woods yet. We're doing better than we were doing. We're slowed down the rate of decrease. We need to get things going. The things about growing people and growing the organization will be done with getting fellows to talk to young kids, increasing the advection of younger people in the organization, making sure that they have a place to voice their views and that we can discuss openly with them. That's very much the native way of doing things and resolving issues. And this is how I'd like to propose this. At the same time, we are an organization that has evolved within the international and the US type of system. We have the AAAS, we have the academies, we have all sorts of organizations that are stepping on each other's toes. I would expect that it is probably in our best interest to find and adopt closer relationships with academies of the world, with organizations like AAAS, like European Commission type of organizations and things of that nature. I think we can get a better positioning of the organization within the ramification of the different areas of business, or let's say market segments that where we can be a winner. So there's many things we can do. There's things that do not cost a lot of money to improve our performance in qualification. We need to be allied with a few organizations as opposed to trying to step on each other's toes and dance together. There's nothing wrong about doing that. And then we will be able to get the right amount of people and the right amount of economics that will make the organization thrive.
Love your realistic and uplifting energy. Thank you, Richard. And now our final question is directed specifically to Richard. Richard, you are involved in an impressive diversity of organizations and activities that could help Sigma Xi broaden its viewpoint. I just want to know if you'll have time for Sigma Xi amidst all those projects.
Well, I think the answer is I already gave. I've been with Sigma Xi for 6 years. It's already part of my agenda. It's part and parcel. I believe strongly in the values and the mission of Sigma Xi. So not only have I wanted to be a president, but I did start with the lowest rung. I started with the board. I started with the international group. We started bringing new ideas to the front. That is essentially what I would like to continue and do, and propel some new ideas in terms of increasing diversity, associating ourselves with other organizations, sharing activities so that we can reduce costs and maximize operations and see ourselves doing well. So there's no issue. Yeah, clearly I'm a busy man, and generally there's a saying that says, if you want to get something done, give it to somebody who's busy, and that's a certain factor. I am busy, but at the same time I'm focused on making sure that in this latter part of my life I'll be getting things done and I'll be able to make strive, and people will be able to remember what I do.
Your commitment is very reassuring, Richard. Nicolas, I think the same question applies to you. Would you like to respond as well, please?
Very much so, thank you. I am really very much involved with a number of organizations and with a number of academies. I still teach. I still have a group of graduate students and undergraduates. In fact, when we finish today, I'm going to go and have my meeting with the undergraduate students in a nice virtual. I love what I do. I believe that I have the stamina and the enthusiasm. Otherwise, I wouldn't have really put myself forward for this particular position. I know this particular position will require a lot of time. I'm willing to do it. I think I'm relatively well organized, and I do not mind at all, of course, working long hours. So for me, it's not a question of giving. It's the question of where you give it. I believe in this organization. I remember the day I became a member at MIT. It was really something that is very difficult to explain. We were all excited that our colleagues, our university and so on, had accepted that we were doing something good. And I continued with that enthusiasm, both at Purdue, where I was very active in the chapter and president and so on, and now more recently at the University of Texas, where we do have some problems in our local chapter. But what I want to say is, of course, I have the time for it. And I rest assured that I will spend all the time that is necessary if I'm elected. Thank you.
And likewise, your dedication to Sigma Xi is very reassuring, both of you. We're very fortunate to have both of you as our candidates. So thank you both for answering the questions that were sent in by the Sigma Xi members. And we're now going to invite questions from our audience. And Jamie, would you mind reviewing the instructions again on how our audience can submit their questions?
Sorry, muted there. Thank you, Linda, for welcoming the instructions again. I believe we have a couple of questions in the Q&A, but I'm going to read through the instructions. Option 1 is for persons wanting to ask questions verbally. So please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and you will be unmuted by the facilitator and invited to ask your question in the order in which it appears in the queue. Please speak clearly when asking your question, and we request that you state your name, affiliation, the candidate for whom the question is directed, and then pose your question. Option 2 is for submitting written questions. Please use the Q&A feature and write your name, affiliation, the candidate for whom the question is directed, and then pose your question. The moderator will read the question in the order received in the queue. For those who have a follow-up question, please follow the same instructions listed above. Follow-up questions will be answered in the order received in the queue. And when asking the question, please indicate that it is a follow-up and to whom the question should be directed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And I believe we have one raised hand to be acknowledged. Iman, is that correct?
Yes, we have one member of Louis Sherman. If you are available, you are now are allowed to speak. You're unmuted and you may state your question.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Hi, Nick. It's Lou Sherman.
Hi.
Okay. Nick was actually the president of the Purdue chapter when I became involved. And we're doing well, but aging. And so your last set of questions were the key things that got me to ask a question. I'm only here by luck today. Yesterday, I had a Zoom meeting with a number of people on campus, all around 40, emphasizing women and diversity to try to look for new, younger leadership at the Purdue level. And they know what we do on campus. But when we start talking about the national, nobody has any idea. And so the question for the both of you is, So as we deal with, I'll be specific, questions about gender and diversity, how does the national become relevant to the university chapters? You know, we're losing membership. It's harder to get new members. It's very hard to get people to renew year after year. You know, they join, we get them for 2 years or so, and then they just kind of stop. And I know that's happening everywhere. The numbers keep dropping that I see, but in particular, as we talk about, you know, getting more women and a more diverse membership, how do you see the national fitting into all of this?
Richard, do you want to go first?
Yes. Well, we've been having the same problems. It's in many different chapters. I deal with the international chapter, so it's quite a bit widespread. But there's been an aging of our population, and that is creating a turnover problem and clearly a leadership problem. It's very hard to pass the baton to the next generation. I've gone and attended many of the chapters activities and meetings in Canada and elsewhere in the US. And one thing that comes about very clearly is that we have no or little appeal to the young people at this point. We need to develop a reason for them to join the organization. Clearly, honor is one of them, but other factors should be involved in it, which is getting to know people and developing a network within the organization that will help them to their first job, that to the next activity, or will join them in different research and be able to provide an international activity or international type of projects that can be derived. So I think generally we need to certainly appeal to the younger generation. We need to figure out a way for the young generation to come in and internationalize the chapters, raise the value of each of the chapters by having other activities and being able to talk to other universities and exchanging within universities. So I think matching different chapters together and exchanging people, exchanging knowledge, getting young people to come in will interest the younger generation, and you will be able to pass the responsibility of leadership to a new group. Some organizations have opted for, and chapters have opted to provide the university with an award for technicians, for example. University of Calgary, for example, and the university likes the price to the technician because generally people who are in a professional cast, they will be getting some awards. But young faculty and other people in the research enterprise may not. And so there is a reason we are an honor society, but not an honor society for the elders, also an honor society for the young and other people who are involved in the research enterprise. So my view is broaden the activity, provide value, increase value by having inter-chapter operations and exchange program, and raise the value for the younger people.
Thank you, Richard. Nicolas.
Richard, you said it extremely well. Lou, thank you very much for the question. You know, I'm sitting in this office and I work and I listen to music and so on. And every half an hour to an hour, I receive an announcement from an organization. Yeah. Very often an organization that is for profit, to participate in some important webinar, in some important discussion by Zoom, where I will learn about something new. This is a unique opportunity for Sigma Xi to bring in all the chapters and the younger generation by really increasing the number of what I would call regional or national short-term seminars and presentations. It is incredible what happens if you have a low fee. And I haven't spoken with Jamie. I don't know if we can have a fee of $25 or $50 for them to register for a day and hear what's happening in COVID. Hearing why, I mean, in the last issue of American Scientist, we had this incredible story about this bridge in Genoa that was reconstructed. And this is an international subject, and I've seen the bridge. I would like all the chapters to come in and listen to those. We are here to educate them. We are here to provide something new. We are not asking them to go to Wisconsin and spend $1,500 to be at the meeting. We are asking them to turn on the computer when they feel like and listen to 2 or 3 talks. You know how important, what a coup d'etat it would be if we had today Professor Robert Langer from MIT or Professor Jennifer Doudna speaking to the local chapters, to some of these inactive local chapters, and say, look, this is what we've done in the field. Or Francis Arnold, I haven't checked to see if Francis is a member of Sigma Xi. People that will excite the world, they will bring us all together, and they will make the local chapters excited again. And I know you guys at Purdue, I know you very well, of course. I was there 26 years. You have magnificent speakers and magnificent enthusiasm. Your president is very enthusiastic and so on, and they can help us. So I think that's one of the many things we can do. Thanks for the question, Lou.
Yeah.
I'd like to add something to that. It is important that that young people, undergrads, meet other potential faculties in grad school. We need to put people together. That's what we're all about. And so bringing people together means that we should have a dance card for different undergrad, and they can talk to different graduate school and faculty in order that they are seen and measured, and people will invite them to come and do grad school in their school. That is how we're going to be able to provide value for the younger students. And we need to bring about some of the issues that bother them. Clearly, climate change is going to have a havoc of a day. Many of the tipping points have been crossed already. So they're worried about these issues. So we need to bring those issues together, and we need to figure out a way for young people to invest their time to solve these big problems. If we could just tell them that the world is going to crash and they have nothing to do, they're only going to panic. So what we need to get is organize the younger people to bring their new ideas to people who are leaders in the field, connect them together, and hopefully they'll do graduate studies together. Same thing at the international level. So I agree also with Nicholas.
Yeah, profound insights from both of you with electrifyingly charged, genuine caring. Thank you. Any other chats, Iman, or should we just go to our questions and answers?
I have 2 hands raised, but there are some questions in the Q&A that were before the hands were raised. So
let's take a look at those. All right. From Ken Waiter, retired chemical engineer, and this is for both candidates. Do you support Sigma Xi's recent pledge to support no political candidates?
And who should they talk first?
Yes, Richard, please.
All right. I do support it. It is not, clearly we all have an opinion. Clearly we are representing a lot of different peoples that have different opinions. It is not the role of an organization to vote instead of its members. Members will vote. It is clear that some candidates are better than others. And I remember when Mr. Trump was elected, and we had a board the day after, a board of Sigma Xi. people were depressed around the table and hungry.
Mm.
And so the answer, what I ask is that, did you spend time and go and vote? Most people said no. So to a large extent, the problem needs to be solved at the voting booth, at the mailing station. It needs to be, we need to bring people to vote. But clearly, the issues have been raised to a level in the US that are extreme. There will be action and there will be consequences, and it's going to be an interesting time. But we represent a large amount of people, and statistically, you'll have 60% of our members will have an opinion, and maybe another 40% will have a different opinion. And I can tell you that even on the board, different people have different opinions. So this is not going to change. Is it the goal of the organization to provide additional knowledge and additional facts for people to vote on? Yes. Is it our job to say vote for this or vote for that? No, it's not.
Nicholas.
And Walter, I think you are a retired chemical engineer, and I know you. The question is a very profound one, and it comes because other organizations have taken a position. We all know Scientific American took a very open position. Yesterday, the New England Journal of Medicine, which is probably the most respected medical journal, did not necessarily encourage that we vote for a particular candidate, but it discouraged voting for a candidate. My feeling is the original decision has been made by Sigmazon. If I were to be elected and I get on the board and we start discussing it, of course, there will be a different situation by that time. Simply because of evolution, but at that time we can bring it back and we can discuss it and see whether the original decision needs to be revised. Things do not need to stay in stone forever. We need to address what the membership says, especially the younger generation and so on. As an individual, I have my own political views. That's a different story. I would answer that question differently if it were a biomedical engineering society, because I know what each particular party will do in the biomedical field. This is a much more general question for all science. So I take the approach that Richard is taking right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Paul Schumacher, Air Force Research Lab, has begun a question, but I don't think has had a chance to complete it. So unless you raise your hand or finish, Paul, I'm going to move on to Fenella Saunders. Fenella is from the Research Triangle Park chapter. She says, for both candidates, how would you specifically respond to members who don't want Sigmazon to discuss matters of diversity or inclusion? Yeah, Nicholas first, please.
Fenella, I've seen your name and I know that you're very active in Sigma Psi. This is a situation where I'm going to take my own personal view. I will discuss it. I will explain to the membership on a personal level, expressing my own views, why I believe that diversity and inclusion is very important in this world and in this society. I will not impose my decision on everybody. I will bring it up to the board. We will discuss it. We will discuss it through focus. But on the other side, I can tell you, this is an important matter that is very important to me. Diversity and inclusion. I cannot accept that some of our members will be excluded. And if that happens, then I'm the wrong person to be president of this organization. Then you should find somebody else. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Richard.
I'd like to, the first thing I'd like to say is that we do have a board, and the board is extremely diverse. We have all colors of the rainbows and sexual preference. and all of these things. I think we spend a lot of time talking about it. It's part and parcel of the world we are today. We are now in the phase where we need to migrate together and be able to operate together as a group. The data is in. If you improve your diversity, you get better ideas. You get to be less driven by male hormones and decisions. You get to make nicer accommodation for certain people. It gets to be less of a trauma. The board at Sigma Xi has been and is fairly diverse. Clearly, we would need to make it diverse if it wasn't. So if somebody came to us with that appeal, I would probably have a lot of good arguments to give him that diversity and inclusion be part and parcel of what we do. It's already in the system. It's already wired in. So we just need to develop further actions that will support it.
Thank you, Richard. Jackie Erickson has this question. Many younger scientists struggle to get ahead. There are organizations to which membership is required. Sigma Xi can be just one more burden. Sad but true. How can Sigma Xi be more relevant to those early in their careers, and how do we get their attention?
I guess it's me.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, again, everything is about value and values. We right now represent little value for undergrads. We provide them with occasion to put a paper, a poster, and everything, and that is great. We should push on this and try to increase that. But we need to identify some added value that will bring them onto their career and keep them with us. It is important that we do so because now we have a gap of age, an age gap into our distribution of population, and that is going to be a hard thing to pass over. So I strongly believe that we do need to be able to provide this opportunity to them, the opportunity of maybe selecting a graduate faculty to present themselves at the other faculty. I am teaching in 3 schools. I know that may be too much, but in chemical engineering as well. But I get 5 or 6 emails a day for people saying, I want to go and study it in Canada or at this institution. I want to take a graduate program with you. So some of these are from the US, as you can probably imagine at this point in time. Some of this is international, but there is a need. There is a need to put together people of the same interest into contact with each other, have a smaller website conversation with a group of graduate or undergrad students and an expert in the field, so that they have contacts, that they know who to talk with, that they can exchange virtual business cards. But we need to bring value to the next generation. We need to assuage their worry about the world, that the new way of doing business and doing work, and that their career are theirs, and they're not the main thing in their life anymore. So we need to adapt ourselves to the new generation, the different ways of seeing the world. And everybody has wisdom in a different way. So it's time that we listen to people.
Thank you, Richard. Nicolas.
Very, very fast, because I know our time passes and there are many questions. I know very well young members of the community. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have the ability to be members of a number of organizations. I want to come up with an organization that will provide for them, as Richard said, some value, something that they can use immediately. that may be some kind of a group or a site where they will learn what new jobs exist, where there will be people writing small articles about how it feels to be working in Seattle versus Boston versus Salt Lake City versus Calgary. I wanted to say versus Inuvik, but I didn't want to push it that much. But anyhow, really, we need to do something that has value for the young people. Young people cannot pay 3 or 4 organizations or 10 organizations fees. And the other thing is, as long as we can afford it, to lower the fees from individuals who are 25 or 30 years old and they are trying to find a job and so on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We have a couple of people who are waiting with hands raised, and we're going to turn to them. Before we do, just quickly, we have many, here's some things for you to be thinking about from the rest of the questions. We have many inactive questions. How would you encourage them to reactivate? How are you going to involve female faculty from Hispanic institutions? What about advocacy of ethics in scientific research? What's the plan for international members? And what would you like to accomplish as an individual if you if you become the president? And let me see. A suggestion about having regional sections and not institutional sections of the organization. But let me turn to that's kind of background. We'll sort through that. If we can get back to it, we will. But Iman has a couple of things.
Thank you. I would like to recognize Luis. You may ask your question.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. The question is for both. This is Jingbo Liu from Texas A&M University College Station chapter. 2 questions. One is, how do you improve collaboration with other professional societies? Another question is asking, what are your tangible plans to involve minority faculty students?
Nicholas?
The first question is a question at the national level, and it is one that if I were to be elected on the board as president-elect, I will address immediately. We need to identify 1 or 2 or 3 other societies with which we can interact. And that will, of course, will trickle down to the chapters so the chapters can start working with each other. However, I want to say when I was at Purdue and I was chair of the chapter there, we were able to interact with the American Chemical Society without any problem. It was not that we had to get permission from the national. Luis, your second question is a very important one. When I talked about diversity, my comment was not directed to just one group. I noticed that in your chat, in your Q&A, you asked about Latinx professors and so on. Absolutely. And especially in Texas, you know how important it is for us. We have so many students, so many poor people that come out of Brownsville and Rio Grande City. Have you seen the things that have happened to them? They know nothing. We need to go ourselves as faculty, as students, as members of Sigma Xi, and sit down with them. Actually go down to Brownsville, actually go down to Edinburgh and talk to them and tell them that this is really what you can do. You can do for yourself, you can do for your family, you can do for everybody and so on, and try to bring them in. Try to make people understand that diversity 20 years from now, it's not going to be there. All of us will be equal. Nobody will be questioning. Does anybody question that I'm Greek? I hope no, except for the accent. They don't question that. And I'm not considering myself Greek. I consider myself as an international scientist who tries to solve problems. So I can assure you, Luis, if I were to be elected, we are going to create those infrastructures, those groups of people that will be going and identifying the minorities, what we used to call minorities.
Thank you, Nicolas. So Richard.
Yes, there's many things that could come to mind at this point. The difficulty with minorities in everywhere is the fact that they need to be in contact with other people, and that's how their value is going to be opening up. So it is important for Sigma Psi to develop a kind of a computerized system to be able to link people to other people, and that way they'll be able to find jobs in academia. But only 20% of those that have a PhD will find a job in academia. There is a lot of work to be done of great value in non-academic system, industrial. We have industrial chapters. There's a capacity of raising the interest of people and focusing them on the possibility of working in industrial organizations. There's PhDs, there's everything. And people have been able to get meaningful careers and specific agendas that they've been able to achieve. So I'm concerned that we're focusing here on 20% of the population, which is the population that will go and become a professor in a university. We need to deal with the rest of the population, the rest of the student body, the rest of the up and coming international students to mingle into the rest of the world, which is the 80%. So I think the 80% solution is important to keep in mind. It is important that nowadays, with the technology that we have, the new technologies we're working with in STEM, to be able to connect people of like mind and like interests. And you know, the idea of having a site in which you can select people to chat with, and on a weekly basis or monthly basis, faculty at different universities would come up and discuss with a bunch of graduate students, just like we did in the time that we had the General Assembly. We would be one or two faculty around the table, and the students would come in, and we could discuss their plans for the future and provide them an indication of where they should go and knock, and that this professor may be interested in what you want to do, and provide them the contact. This can be done in other ways than sitting down and face-to-face with people nowadays. It can be done with websites, and you can have professor move left or move right, depending on who you want to deal with. But the fact of the matter is, we need to keep people connected and ensure that they're well connected. And that is going to be how people will find places to be, how they will be able to build their career. And I'm saying again, I'm part of an organization that is promoting the 80% of the jobs, which is the non-academic portion. Believe me, you can make as much money as an old professor in industry, and you can have major problems to resolve. And you can be dealing with climate change. You can be dealing with methane exchange. You can be dealing with scissor. So all these things are available to people, but the availabilities and the possibilities of job and the interface between people needs to be done in a different way. COVID-19 has hampered our old-fashioned way of having big meetings where people would go and young students would come and ask you a question. This does not occur anymore. So we're going to have a vacuum period, which we need to fill, and that could be done with an app or an organized way to get people to talk to each other in small groups, just like people do in a conference.
Thank you, Richard. These wonderful ideas. It's just like a endless waterfall, just so rich, and the depth of earnestness and commitment and dedication It's truly inspiring. Thank you. Well, unfortunately, our time is drawing to a close. I'm so sorry we weren't able to get to all of the questions, but those questions have stirred an energy that I know will sit within these candidates and will help and guide them in shaping their thoughts about the presidency. So thank all of you who made these contributions. And now each candidate is invited to provide 30-second closing remarks. And Nicholas, if you would go first, please. Thank you.
We are here today because we believe in science. We believe in knowledge. We believe that that knowledge has to be transmitted to the young generation, to other countries, and so on. Let's do this. Let's have Sigma Xi be the beginning and the most important organization that takes care of that. And let's educate also our journalists and the public that tries to get information from the Wikipedias and I don't know what else, and from the various blogs, instead of getting it from scientists. I believe in knowledge. I believe in science. I believe in Sigma Xi. Thank you.
Stirring. Thank you, Nicolas. Richard.
I am thankful. This weekend it's Thanksgiving here. Our growing season is shorter. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful to the organization. I'm thankful that Sigma Xi exists. I'm thankful that they selected 2 candidates out of a mass of people to be presented to you. And I'm very thankful that they selected me. And same thing for Nicholas. My view of the world is that this organization requires a lot of TLC. TLC, which we have been able to get going in the last 6 years. I think we need to go to a different step, that the world is changing. And as the world is changing, we need to evolve. So we have a great setting, a great organization, a great CEO, and a fantastic journal. Let's use all these assets. Let's mingle with our colleagues in different organizations. Let's find a way to reduce our overcost burden and augment our capacity to recruit new people. And clearly, at the end of the day, people will be with us if we provide them with value. And this value may be a reputation, maybe jobs, maybe new research project done, and why not having a fully diverse group or research group that can work together and present papers. Remember, all the papers that were reviewed that had large diversity in the authors were read much higher, and the papers were giving impact factors which were significantly better. So there's a reason for us to be here. We're at the end of a very difficult time, hopefully, and we need to change in order to take advantage of what's coming.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Very rousing closure to this circle. May we all be concentric circles that are orbiting around Sigma Xi and giving it all of the energy that we have. So thank you both for taking time from your busy schedules to participate in this first ever Sigma Xi Town Hall. I wish you both the best as we move toward the election. And I'd also like to extend a very special thank you to all of the members for providing such provocative and stimulating questions. Thank you, Jamie, for hosting this event, and to all the Sigma Xi staff who made it possible and luminous.
And thank you, Linda, for doing such a great job moderating. You really took advantage of this opportunity to highlight the important issues that we were discussing today. And I'd like to thank Dr. Boudreau and Dr. Pepis for participating in this town hall. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your views and your visions for the society. And I'd like to thank the audience for your participation in this first ever presidential town hall. I'd like to encourage you all to vote electronically November 9th through the 22nd As a reminder, each eligible voter will receive a ballot to vote for the president and other vacant positions within your individual region or constituency. And you may visit Sigmazai's website, sigmazai.org, to learn more about the candidates. The links to the candidates' profiles will be in the chat box for the next few minutes. And following up on the annual meeting, active members will receive that email from Vote Now with a ballot verification number and a link to cast your vote. Inactive members can become active through payment of your current membership dues. So come back and vote. And also, if you've not done so yet, please register for the 121st annual meeting and student research conference themed Hacking the Brain, the Intersection of Art and Neuroscience, being held virtually November 5th through the 8th, where we will be showcasing what science and art can do together that neither can do alone. And there you will also have the opportunity to learn how this organization can help your chapter and serve all of our members nationwide, internationally, and wherever you are. And you'll also get one of these great masks, your bags for registering for the meeting. So the link to the event is provided in the chat box. It should be now. And we value your input, so please feel free to send feedback about this event and other ideas to executiveoffice@sigmazai.org. And have a great evening, stay safe, be well. Long live Sigmazai.
Live long and perspire.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you. And may you have one as well.
Can we hang up? Finished? Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
done?
We are.
Already?
Thank you. I'm ready for the new meeting now.
Enjoy your class.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And do
Likewise.
not do what I wouldn't do. But if you do, have fun. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.